Hi, this is Kylie. Welcome to my studio. So before I get into today's project, I just want to say a bit about Deli paper and other papers similar to it. Now, I've had a few questions over the last couple of weeks because I've been using Deli paper, and I think because it's less common here in the UK, perhaps in other countries out with the US, a lot of people have been saying, what is it and where can they get it? So this is the Deli paper I use, 6 inches by 10 3/4, and I actually got this from Amazon. It's the only place I've been able to get it to date. However, I think I may have found another source. I'm going to order it and see what it's like, and then I will report back to you. So this paper's not big, you can get bigger, but as I say, well, in terms of the cost, that was the one I decided to opt for. Now, it's not terribly dissimilar to the kind of base of the Tim Holtz paper. So if you have some of that kind of printed tissue from Tim Holtz, it's very similar. Now, one of the other things I sometimes use is this greaseproof paper. This is a long roll, 10 metres. I think this perhaps only cost £1, so we get lots out of it. And actually, it's probably very similar to Deli paper. Now, I found it quite difficult to even get that kind of clear greaseproof paper, but I did find it in one of the pound shops quite some time ago. And I'm just trying to show you there that it's got a kind of similar translucent effect or transparent effect to the actual Deli paper. So that's a nice big roll, and I have used it to do monoprinting with a gel plate, etc. in the past. Now, just showing you, this is another one that I bought. Again, I think this came from one of the pound shops, and it is white. I'm not going to open it out, but it's basically the same as that other one. And one of the other things that could be used is tracing paper. Now, I have tracing paper somewhere, but for the life of me, I could not find it today to show you that, but it's very similar. Just showing you this greaseproof paper. This is the normal stuff that you'll get in the supermarkets, and I sometimes just use it as to cover one of my craft mats, but you'll see it's still quite transparent, so that could be used if you didn't want a clear background, and I've certainly painted on that before, used it as drop sheets, etc. The other thing that's quite similar to greaseproof paper, or sorry, more to tracing paper, is vellum. So if you had vellum, you could use that as well. So let's get into today's project. So the project that I'm going to do today, I was actually going to use one of my masterboards from previous weeks, and I'll put links to those particular videos above and below and to the playlist at the end. However, I've decided that I will actually use this just to show how this works. So I'm just going to use that greaseproof paper, as I say, very similar to Deli paper. So just cutting a piece of that out, and I'm actually going to do two similar projects today. I bought this small embroidery hoop from Hobbycraft. It measures 3 inches. It's described as 3 inches, which would be about 7.5 centimetres. So that's just most of that kind of central hole there. And this one just pushes out. It's quite flexible. And I'm just going to take a piece of the greaseproof paper just to check that this will work, because I hadn't actually used this before in this particular way, so I do want to just check that it'll work. So I'm just tearing it a little bit bigger than the actual hole that I need, and then I'm looking at how I would then fit it in. So the good thing about this one is it literally just pushes in. Now, this project would be suitable for masterboards, whether it's the Deli tissue paper type that I've used in my last project and created as one of my masterboards, or indeed it could be one of the just the paper masterboard. It doesn't have to be Deli paper. So that's quite taut in there. I'm quite pleased with that. So I'm just going to take that out, but I'm actually going to use another bit. simply because I want it a little bit bigger at this point. So I'm just going to tear that out again, just looking at that, making it a little bit bigger. I want a bit of overhang. I don't want it to be so tight that when it comes to actually putting it into the frame that you know, it's maybe close to some of the edges. I'd rather cut off the excess. So all I'm going to do now is use a pencil to draw around that. Now the reason I'm doing that is I want a rough guide to where I'm going to put my design. So clear those bits and pieces off to the edge, and what I'm also going to do, and you could use a cup, a small plate, something else to draw a line here, but I'm just going to use this piece of cardstock. It's not cardstock, it's from a paper pack, and I'm just going to draw around this in a similar way to cut another couple of pieces. And the reason I'm showing you this is to show that you don't need one of these embroidery hoops to do this type of project. I want to make it much the same size as the hoop there, so I'm just drawing around the outside of that. And then I will draw around the inside, and that's going to give me the kind of size that I want to make my second hoop, that's just going to be purely from paper. Now if you had a big punch you could punch it out, but I'm just going to cut it out. So I'll cut round the outside edge first, and then I'm going to cut round the inside. Now I don't want to waste all that paper on the inside, so the way I'm going to do that, I'm just going to punch a few holes there, just enough so that I can then get my scissors in. Could have done it with a craft knife, but just decided to do it this way. And then I'm just going to cut round that inside piece. And you'll see in a moment that that gives me most of that inside piece to use again on another project. So there we go, got those two pieces as well. And all I'll do with that one is draw around that. Again, I want to know roughly the area that I'm going to be working on. And I hadn't realised that the sunshine had actually come out today, otherwise I would have closed a blind. So there will be a little bit of light on my desk, I'm afraid. So just going to smooth those out a bit and get them ready to start the process. Okay, so I'm going to speed this up a bit because it's quite a repetitive process, but basically I'm taking a stencil. I honestly can't remember whose stencil this is, and I'm also taking a sepia ink. Now I am stamping or stenciling onto the back of the piece, so I want to turn this over, so what it does is actually makes it look even more kind of muted. So I'm actually turning the stencil over and stenciling that from the back. Again, just going to the other side and stenciling the wrong way round so that when I turn it over it will look as if it's the right way, but as I say, it's just going to be a bit more muted. And just trying to build a bit of interest there. Now for the other piece I'm going to use a different stencil here. This one is a snip art stencil, and again just creating a bit of interest in the background. So I do have some tissue paper. Looking at this came in a kind of box of different items that I bought at one time, and just looking at what's on there and whether I might use it. I thought this might have been tissue paper as well, but it's not, it's actual paper, so that just went away to be used another day. So I'm just going to cut a couple of pieces out of this. I want one piece for one of the hoops and a different one for the other one. So I choose a bit of script and a bit with music on it. And all I want to do is again to add this from the back because I want to create some interest. So I'm almost making this a kind of mixed media piece, and it will be translucent, the light will show through it, but with the various bits on it, it makes it less transparent than it was. So I did give that a bit of a dry, first with my heat tool and then just absorbing any excess ink. The ink does take longer to dry on this type of paper. So looking at how my little pieces of tissue might fit in there, but I want to do some stamping now. So with this first one, I'm taking these kind of gears, and again, I'm just using the sepia ink. I don't want anything too strong. I want it to sit very much in the background. I'm just going to use 2 different sizes of gears, and there I am just stamping off onto that little bit of paper that was left, and again that will be used in collage at some future point. I'm now going to do some stamping on the other one. This is just a kind of wild flower. And again, just going to stamp it on the back, just so that it fades into the background a bit. In a sense, it's a bit like creating some layers, but this time it's creating them almost on the reverse side. So looking at how those will fit in, want a bit of a rough edge on them, so all I'm going to do is tear these a bit. Just going to use a glue stick to put them down. Now again, I am gluing the front side down onto the back of that so that it will show the right way. So the glue will go on the front and I then turn it round. And the same with this piece. I want to see the script, although, you know, with these tissues it wouldn't matter too much because it's quite difficult to see the detail of what's on them anyway. I'm just using a little bit of glue stick to do that. And there, that goes down as well. So I decide that I want to kind of grunge up the edges a little bit. I want to do this before I put it into the hoops. So all I'm going to do is to take my brush again and just to dab some ink round. This time I'm going to use some black StazOn. Just testing it out on that piece of paper. And I'm literally going to go round the circle. Now you see I go round it, you can see it on the other side. I actually end up going round it a second time because once I put the hoop on it, I can see that it's not going quite far enough into the main design. As always with these things, I do a little bit, see how it goes, and then add more because it's easier to add more than it is to try and take some things away. And I wanted both of these to have quite a kind of grungy look to them, but one looking more industrial and one kind of more nature themed. So there I am, just adding a bit more, just want a bit more of that coming through. And again, doing it on the back so that it's not quite so obvious. And just making sure that I try and lift any excess. So now looking at that paper hoop and which way I want it, and I've decided, and what I'm going to do now is to paste that in. Just beforehand I start to look at a few pieces. Now I had thought about actually stamping a main issue on the front, but I decided just to use my Tim Holtz Botanicals and Tim Holtz Paper People just to see, just to give it more of a focal point. I thought the stamped image might just go into the background too much. So again, just using my glue stick to put this together. So gluing on one side, and I want this as my front piece, and you'll see that the word oil, that's letting me see exactly what way is the front, and putting that on. And I'll just lay it off to the side, giving it a minute to kind of glue down. So now putting that over my hoop, and I'm just going to push this top hoop on. Once I'm happy with the position, it takes a little bit of pushing, but actually quite easy. And then I'm just going to cut around this back edge just to take the excess off. And there we have it. So now just trimming off this one. So, you know, in some ways similar to last week's projects when I made the faux photo slides, but just a little bit different. But again, a project I think is interesting. Now, of course, Nina will have a project this week as well, and I will leave a link to Nina's video below. And if you are in the Mixed Media Emporium, then I hope this is a project that you'll like to try. Thanks so much to everybody that's sharing their work there. And I'll leave a link to the group in the description box below if you're interested in joining. Just inking round these now, and then I'm going to use my Tim Holtz Chit Chats just to find an appropriate kind of word to put on each one. So can I also say a big thank you to all my new subscribers. Thanks very much for joining me, and as always a big thank you to those of you that have been with me for some time now. I do appreciate all your views, all your comments, all your likes, and of course all your subs. So just gluing the main pieces in place now, and I decided to take this pen to start to outline it, and to be honest, I didn't like it. I kind of wish that I hadn't done that. If I was making more, I wouldn't do it. I had a look for my Stabilo All, couldn't find it, so I just took an Inktense, but I took it in a charcoal rather than the black, and I just want to put a little bit of a shadow effect around the main focal images and around the words. I keep this one quite light, but again I want it quite kind of grungy looking. The butterfly one, because it had the kind of industrial background, I make this a little bit heavier and thicker, a bit more obvious, and especially around the word. But again, as I've said with some of my other projects, you know, you could really make these to suit your own personal style, whether it's grungy, whether it's vintage, whether it's something bright. So I just want to put an eyelet in this so that I could hang these. You know, these could hang on a wall or they could hang in front of a window. By this point, the sun wasn't quite as bright, otherwise I might have hung it up on the window to let you see. But here's the two finished pieces. And I'm really quite happy with the way that they've turned out. I'm going to make more of these. I think I'm just kind of into this kind of notion of translucent art just now, just being able to see through it. I think it's something a little bit different, and it's something that I'm really enjoying just now. As I say, the masterboards, pieces of the masterboards would be ideal in this, whether they were Deli paper or ordinary paper. Both would fit very well, but I'm pleased with that. And here's the other one, and I'm definitely going to make some more of these as well. I'd quite like to almost hang some, maybe about 3 in a row, joining them together. So that's it for this week. Hope you've enjoyed it. Do let me know what you think by leaving a comment, hitting the like button, and all that kind of stuff. So as always, thanks for watching. Bye for now.